What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Coast, episode 5, your premier college football morning kickoff show. I'm one of your hosts, Bill Shawcross. You can call me Uncle Shally. Almost might have a new nickname this week. Gene brought up on Wednesday, but I don't know if we're ready to debut it yet. But we have a absolute jam-packed, massive episode for you this morning. First day of fall, it's football season. We are into all the good matchups, all the meat and potatoes. We got a bunch for you today. So helping me steer the ship, as always, my two main partners in crime. I got my Buckeye brother from another mother, Cottrell Simpson, out in Columbus, Ohio. What's going on, brother?
It's a beautiful day to be a Buckeye, you know.
It could be later tonight.
It's funny. Urban Meyer coined the phrase, every week, he says, what's better than being at this point for us, being 2-0, and that's, having the opportunity to be 3-0. So fully expect that to be the case come the end of the day. Well, being 4-0. Is Bill stuck or is he thinking?
No, he's just Bill's stuck. Thinking.
He's
live TV, man. Live TV. What are you going to do about it?
That is hilarious. But what's up, Alex?
Not much, man. I'm just excited for the full slate of games today. That's what we're going to be talking about. I mean, we've got Ohio State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Bama, Colorado, Oregon, Iowa, Penn State, and a few more after that. I mean, honestly, today's games were hard to even do my picks because there's so many good games I wanted to throw on there. So I can't wait to get started. And I think we're starting with the college football eliminator, or are we jumping into recaps from last week?
So we're going to do the recaps first. Bill's frozen, so I'll let you guys know exactly what we got going on today. So we're going to start off with our recaps. Then we're going to go into our CFB Eliminator. Only one team's made a move this week, so you guys will see what team that is. We also got a little fun thing. We got some teams outside the club waiting to get in. So we'll show that this week. And then after that, we're going to go full-fledged right into it. It's a huge slate of games. Alex already mentioned it. Bill mentioned it as well. So we got about, I think, 6 games that we're actually going to be going over this week. So it's going to be fun. And then, as always, of course, we're going to get right into Pick'em. But I feel like right now, while we wait for Bill to come back in, the best place to start, it has to be Colorado against Colorado State. I mean, that was the most anticipated matchup last week, especially after Colorado State's coach went off and ran his mouth. Alex, how did you feel that game went? And what were your thoughts about it?
Honestly, it felt when we were talking about the game and how much hype was kind of built up around the Colorado State rivalry, it almost felt like the line was too good to be true. Like there was too much hype for Colorado, like they were going to blow Colorado State out of the water. And then all of a sudden, the game started, and the complete opposite happened. Colorado State came out, kicked Colorado straight in the mouth, and said, "We're not scared of you. We may not have a win this season, and we may be heavily underfavored or undervalued in this game. We're going to come out, we're going to smack you in the mouth, and we're going to compete." And honestly, up in that fourth quarter, I was worried that Colorado was about to blow it, and this game against Oregon this week was not going to be the show it is now because they pulled out last week. So I mean, the drama, the rivalry, the camaraderie, the arguments between the teams. I mean, even the skirmish before the games when Travis Hunter was talking to the Colorado State players. I mean, the game was just straight fire from whistle to whistle. I mean, that's kind of the intensity you expect to see in college football, and why a lot of people love college football over the NFL is that pride for your school and your teammates is there. And you truly saw that from kickoff into the last play of the game. And honestly, it was one of the best games I've seen in a long time. I'm sure you guys are up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching that game. Am I right?
Yeah, it ended up being like 2:30 over here.
Yeah,
it was nuts, absolutely nuts. But I was staying up though. I was being a trooper. I had to see if Colorado was going to pull it off or not, because I almost felt like, had Colorado lost that game, obviously the next 2 weeks would have lost so much steam. Like, I think now that they're 3-0 and, obviously they got a tough matchup today against Oregon. But I think now, if your first loss is against Oregon and then the following week you still have that opportunity to go play USC, I do think there is still going to be some level of interest still there. Had they lost to Colorado State, I think this game would have been, is less amped up to, what everybody's talking about in the media. And I get it. They lost Travis Hunter, but, had they lost to Colorado State and then going into Oregon with the potential to be, 2-2 going into USC, I think a lot of people would have been like, Buffs, cool story still, but, not as interested. We fully expect USC to go blow them out and, on to the next game. Like the story wouldn't be there anymore for that Colorado team had they lost.
You would have lost some of the luster with like the casual fans, which is now going to be peaking at an all-time high again today. If you're not a Colorado or Oregon fan, a lot of people are going to watch that football game today at 3:30. I really wanted that to be like a late game. I understand why they moved it. Couldn't be in the 7 o'clock hour, obviously, with Notre Dame, Ohio State, and then even the Penn State, Iowa game already. I was really hoping I was going to be like the full day. Like I was going to watch Michigan at noon, find a good 3:30 game, watch those two games at 7:30, and then be able to go the full day and watch Oregon, Colorado at night. But they moved it to 3:30, so I get it. It's good for TV. Oregon will get a chance to nationally, kill Bambi on live TV and put a huge dent into this whole Colorado momentum train thing they have going on right now, and deservedly so. But
the one thing, Bill, that I will say to that though is, why wouldn't they still? I get it, 3:30 prime hour, things like that. Everyone's going to be in front of the TV, but you just had Colorado versus Colorado State be the 5th most watched game ever on ESPN, and that was a 10 o'clock game.
I don't disagree with you, because I mean, and they were playing Colorado State, which really wasn't bringing that much to the party there viewership wise. That was a lot of Colorado. Again, I agree. I would have had him kick at 10. I would have had all those fans tune right over from Ohio State and Notre Dame, Penn State, Iowa fans tune right into Colorado and Oregon. Oregon's a big market up there. It's not a top 5 market, but they have a huge fan base in that part of the country. Plus all the people that are pulling for Colorado, or all the people that want to see Colorado lose. I think you would have drew another huge number at 10 o'clock tonight. I really do, but that is obviously above my pay grade. So I was hoping for that. That's really what I wanted, because it would have been a full day of just awesome college football. But I guess they're going to go for the 3:30 and the sure thing, and then kick it over to the big boys later tonight. So, but we're going to talk about both those games at length. I think that this is a perfect week for us. Obviously, I have Rutgers today at noon. Not going to spend too much time on that game. I'm going to talk about it in one thing I'm looking forward to today. But the beauty of having this show today is the 2 biggest games of the week. Our co-hosts are obviously very personally involved in those football games. So, we preview those. Those are going to be the last 2 we preview. It's going to be very interesting to see their takes, how they view it as fans. Unbiased journalists as well, but personal beliefs and personal feelings in the game as well. So we're going to get to them later. We do got to get going because we have a lot. We're going to preview 7 games for you guys today, all the big ones, all the ranked versus ranked matchups. We're going down, bang, 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 1 through 7. We recap a little bit more from last week. We do have one new team switching sides in the college football eliminator. Sorry, Vols fans, but let's get it going. So where do you guys want to start from last week? Got 3 games to really go over. We already touched on the Colorado State game a little bit. We can start. I'll make an executive decision. We will start with. We'll start with South Carolina, Georgia. Number 1 Georgia Bulldogs had the Gamecocks come to town. First kind of real test of somewhat equal talent on the field and speed and all those good things. Georgia, let's just say it. Georgia struggled. Georgia didn't look good. I think they dominated, and maybe the score, I guess you could say maybe the score didn't reflect what was really going on for the entire game. Definitely didn't look like the Georgia team from the last 2 years, though, which we've all agreed and all said, as good as this Georgia team probably is, their ceiling is not where they were for those last 2 championship teams. I think Spencer Rattler had a great game. The Gamecocks came out ready to play and took it to them for parts of that game. I'm curious to see, how Georgia rebounds this week. And what do you have your opinions of Georgia going forward? Have they changed based off last week's game?
For me, they haven't. I mean, I kind of, like I said last week when we were kind of previewing this game, I said, for Georgia to win this game, they're going to have to do Georgia Bulldog things, and they're going to control the line, control the time of possession, and control the line of scrimmage. And last week, that's exactly what they did. They had the ball for 37 minutes versus South Carolina's 22 minutes, and they outrushed them 190-53. So really, they did Georgia Bulldog football. However, that first half, not going to lie, South Carolina had us all in our feelings about how Spencer Rattler was going to, it was his coming out party, and Georgia was definitely not the team to beat this year. And then Georgia came out in the second half, and it was a totally different football team as far as intensity, speed to the ball, team tackling. I mean, whatever he said at halftime definitely flipped the switch for them. But if South Carolina could put it together for 4 quarters, we're talking about a totally different result, in my opinion.
And then for me, I'm with you, Alex. It didn't really change my opinion on that Georgia team at all because I was kind of expecting it. I didn't think that Georgia would just go steamroll South Carolina. I thought it would be somewhat closer. I thought they have a gamer in Spencer Rattler. So I definitely thought South Carolina would get chances to put up points. But I will say, that second half, there is something to be said about, Kirby Smart going into halftime, making those adjustments, because I had even said in our group chat, while we were watching the game, I thought South Carolina was doing a good job of taking their shots downfield and getting those explosive plays, but it didn't seem like it was sustainable because Georgia was just dominating the line of scrimmage. Although they weren't getting sacks on Spencer Rattler in the first half, they were getting him off of his mark, pretty regularly. So I knew in the second half that South Carolina team would have to, pick it up and pick up some more blocks and things like that. And I just knew that probably wouldn't be the case. And so, Georgia went out and they did what they do. I do think the one thing that it kind of has shown me is one thing that I kind of already knew already is that Georgia is going to be relying heavily on their rushing attack. If Georgia gets down in the game against one of the heavy hitters, like, let's say SEC championship game, they're going up against a LSU or Texas A&M or even an Alabama team that, I'm sure we're going to talk about them later. But if they go up against one of those teams and they get down early, I don't know how much I trust Carson Beck to bring those guys back. But as it stands right now, I think Georgia's still that dominant team. And this was really just that first test in a season so far where Georgia hasn't really played anybody. So let's just call that what it is.
So you brought up 2 good points that I was going to bring up. I was going to bring up your text that you were saying the score kind of wasn't really reflective. Georgia going down, driving the ball to the 20, and then like fumbling or missing a field goal. How you said it wasn't sustainable, and obviously in the second half, everything just started to click, and they started to put points on the board. The bigger point, though, is what you hit on last, which I 100% agree on. This offense is not as explosive as it was the last 2 years. I think they're going to lean on their defense going forward this year, even more than they have the last 2 years. And I don't think this defense is as good. My worry is if somebody can come out, that has a great defense. South Carolina is not. They do not at all. Georgia bullied them and just kind of got back to basics and got the lead and then, just kind of put the whole game to rest. But, they're playing at LSU or Alabama or A&M, any of those teams later in the year that can, put up a number and get in front and start to cruise. I don't know if Georgia's capable of going out and putting up 30 or having that outburst like they did against Ohio State last year in the college football playoff. I don't see that. And I could be wrong. It could be them keeping stuff in locked away in the playbook for later. I just, from an outside point of view, looking at them, I don't get the same feel or the same mystique that I've had with Georgia the last 2 years. Not saying they can't win it, because I 100% think they're one of the 8 or 9 teams that are capable of winning the national championship. I just don't think they're anywhere near what this team was the last 2 years. I think they will need a lot of things to go right for them to win a 3rd straight championship. I think you always need luck to win these things. You need things to break your way. You need to stay healthy. I think those teams the last 2 years were so good they could overcome a lot of that stuff. They had the players. If they were down 14, they could score 2 touchdowns quick. They had the ball threats. They had, a 4 or 5, play scoring drive. I don't see that this year against a good team. It's early, like you guys both said, it's the first good team they've actually played. So we'll see, see going forward how they look in SEC play. They actually have that weird thing. I think they have a non-conference game today, which is weird, but I forget who they play. But
UAB, University of
yeah.
Alabama, Birmingham.
So, I thought it was going to be a tighter game, so I took South Carolina to Superdog. We'll get into that later when you pick them, but I don't know. I just think at this point in the season, I would put it this way. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I would say Georgia has a whole lot more question marks right now as we sit here this year than they have the past 2 seasons, and that to me makes it interesting. I think it makes it interesting for the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Florida States, all those teams. So, I think it's good for college football. But if you're a Georgia fan, I don't know how Gene feels. I wish he was in the chat. He could, let me know what he's thinking as a Bulldogs fan. But going forward, I think it's going to be interesting with them this year. So let's switch gears. Let's go to the next game. Let's go to what didn't really end up being a good game at all. Let's go to to the Washington Huskies at Michigan State Spartans, which ended up just being an absolute blowout. Obviously, the whole Mel Tucker thing is still to the point where I don't think can comment on it. I know I would like to talk about it. I think I don't know about Alex. I know me and Kachuk kind of have similar points of view on it, but I just don't think there's been enough released yet where we can really talk about it in a factual basis. But that being said, that whole dilemma is tearing that football program apart. They weren't playing well under Mel. Me and Cottrell saw this game differently. I saw it the way it actually went. I think Cottrell looked at it and thought those kids were going to rally around their coach and come out and play hard and put up a good effort. And that really didn't happen at all. I think you're going to start seeing kids shut it down for the season. They're going to transfer out. I think that program is in free fall right now. I think it started last year. You saw a lot of kids transfer out of that program that are starting in other places and thriving. Cottrell mentioned it last week. Peyton Thorne went from Michigan State and struggled to get on the field, and now he's the starting quarterback at a good Auburn team. What's the kid at Florida State's name? I always forget his name.
Keon Coleman.
Keon Coleman is having a massive year down in Florida State as a wide receiver. They couldn't figure out how to get him the football last year. A lot of stuff that's just not adding up in East Lansing. I obviously being a Michigan fan, I never lose any sleep when Michigan State doesn't do well. It's a little bit different because of the circumstances. I feel bad for the kids. Kids didn't sign up for this. They didn't.
Right.
So, I think he's he has a couple days to present his appeal per se for the ruling they already gave down. They intend to fire him for cause. I think you're going to see another huge transfer out of that program this year. I think you're going to see a lot of kids in the portal, and if that happens, whoever takes that team is you're kind of 2 years behind at that point. He was already trying to rebuild it through the portal from what he lost last year. 2 years in a row, that is a lot. But again, we'll get into that more in a future show. What did you guys think of the performance? On the flip side of it, I think Michael Penix looked great. I think Washington looked great. They just kind of went in there and handled their business. They didn't let any of the noise with what was going on with the Spartans bother them. They went in, they stayed focused, and they went up and down that field. I think Michael Penix is one of the top 2 or 3 favorites for the Heisman right now. What did you guys think? Cottrell, let you go first. The Big Ten game in this one.
So, I mean, for me, this game was pretty cut and dry. It seemed like pretty much at the beginning of the game, as soon as, that first drive that Washington had where Michigan State was in a position to potentially get a turnover, tip pass ended up landing in the hands of a Washington receiver. They went on and scored off that play. It almost felt like that Michigan State team was completely deflated from there. At first it did seem like they were going to be competing, and I know that happened earlier on in the game, but it seemed like they were going to go out, fight in that game, and then that happened, and like you could tell all the air was let out of the stadium. So got to give credit to Washington too. I think that's an easy situation to be like, hey, this team has nothing to really play for, and we don't have to necessarily bring our A game to win this one. And they still brought it, and they took care of business. So got to give credit to Washington for staying focused there. In terms of Michigan State, I mean, their biggest thing is going to be, just weathering the storm throughout the rest of the season. obviously, you know, no one had Michigan State winning the Big Ten this year or even competing for it, really. So that's kind of, I guess, one thing that was going in their favor. It's not necessarily a lost season, but you're 100% right. That coach coming in is going to have a lot of work to do. But the nice thing is that Michigan State is one of those jobs that, you know, they could be able to lure, you know, a big name guy to help turn that program around. It's funny because, I mean, I know this won't happen, but chat boards up there in East Lansing, they're calling for Urban Meyer to step out of the booth and go to Michigan State. There's absolutely no way he's going to take that job. He doesn't want to go to a situation where he has to rebuild, especially like there. You have to rebuild from the ground up. He's not doing that. But it is nice, though, because I do think Michigan State has that ability that they can go out and hire a big-time name. And I understand everybody can't be Coach Prime, but you saw how fast Prime was able to turn around in Colorado, get that intrigue. And I get it. They haven't had like a super tough test yet, but you can see how quickly the tide can turn if you take advantage of the transfer portal and take care of business in recruiting.
I think Prime was such a unique situation, though. He was already coaching.
Agreed.
He had his son there who is obviously turned out to be, you know, everything that he said he was. He's absolute prime time, you know, not to use that pun, but Division I quarterback. I don't see another guy out there like that happening. You know, I've heard the Urban Meyer name. I agree with you 100%. Urban Meyer is not going to Michigan State to rebuild that program. He's not. And I think you'd be crazy after firing Mel Tucker for allegedly what you're going to fire him from. Urban Meyer hasn't had the last couple clean years either. I just don't think that's what you bring into that program. I've heard Brian Hartline's name a lot. I don't think that's the job for him. I don't think he goes there either. I've heard Dan Mullen's name. I don't know if I see that either. I almost think you need to get somebody that you think is 100% going to be there for the next 4 to 5 years that can turn it around. And then on top of that, as an administration, you have to give them the time to do it. And that is going to be the most important thing. But I feel for the kids. You know, I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the year. I look at their record now after the Washington game. They still have to play Michigan. They still have to play Ohio State. They still have to play Penn State. I mean, there's no way in hell I see them winning any one of those 3 games. That's 6 losses right there. Like that is, it's just, it's gonna be a long year up there. Alex, you know, what from a further being a little further away from it on the West Coast. I don't know what you guys hear about it out there, but what do you think?
I mean, plain and simple, Michigan State doesn't make the headlines like they used to out on the West Coast. You know, they're kind of like, you almost forget about them. You know, they're kind of the little brother to Michigan. But going into this game, kind of like we talked about, I did expect Michigan State to kind of play for each other and, you know, play above their heads and go out and actually, you know, compete against Washington. But instead, they allowed Washington to double their total rushing yards for the season. I mean, combined the first 2 games of the season, they only had like 164 rushing yards. And this last week, they had 177, averaging 5.4 yards a carry. And they gave up 0 sacks against Michigan State. And it's kind of hard to have the will to compete when you're down 35-0 at halftime. Michael Penix showed us who he is. I mean, Michigan State's definitely going to be a situation going into next year that we're going to have to keep an eye on to kind of see what their coaching situation looks like. I think the only person that can bring in the type of players Coach Prime did is if they announced Eminem is going to be the new head coach at Michigan State. But all jokes aside, I mean, that program is in absolute turmoil. I was hoping that they'd put up a little bit of fight this last weekend, but 41-7, it was a pretty ugly game. And not really much to say. I really don't want to waste too much time on that game right now. It's just not worth talking about.
So I want to just comment on Washington though. I think, you know, that Washington-Oregon game now, assuming, you know, Oregon gets through today's game with Colorado, that game is setting up by the week. The implications of that game get larger and larger. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to have Alex on the team, you know, on the show this year when that game comes up. That is a huge rivalry. That is, I mean, nothing is Michigan, Ohio State. Sorry, Alex, but it is that level type rivalry. So if those teams head into that game both undefeated, that is going to be a major showdown, not only for the Pac-12 but for the college football playoff. So that's going to be fun. I got that one circled. I'm looking forward to that. I hope everybody shows up to that game undefeated. But the last game we want to go over is going to kind of kick us into the next segment as well. So I say this one for last, and also because in a weird way, this was the most surprising to me. Tennessee went down to Florida, went into Gainesville, the Swamp. We know it's a tough place to play. Tennessee didn't really show up. I don't know how else to say it. Sorry, Vols fans. I don't know if Joseph Jeffers is in here. I know he's a huge Tennessee guy. They did not look good. Kind of got old Joe Milton for spurts of that game, which I said could happen. I hate to say it, Florida. So I mean, kind of came up with a good performance out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't expect them to win the way they wanted, just running the ball with ETN down Tennessee's throat. Didn't see that coming either. I know they always play well in Florida. Again, it is a very difficult place to go play, but they pretty much just beat Tennessee in every facet of the game. What did you guys think? I don't know how much of the games you watch. I try to watch a lot of it, but I had to make my way to the stadium at some point. But from what I gathered, what I watched, and what I watched when I came back, wasn't great. Wasn't a good Tennessee performance, and they've put themselves in quite a predicament now.
I mean, for me, I think the most surprising thing was Billy Napier finally learned that Graham Mertz isn't going to be the guy to win you some games. And so he went and relied on, that rushing attack. Trevor Etienne, he had himself a day. He ran for 172 yards, had a touchdown as well. And with Graham Mertz, they followed the KISS mentality, keep it simple, stupid. They said, hey, go out there. We don't need you to throw for 300 yards. We don't need you to, thread the needle, things like that. Just pick up some normal completions and we should be good to go. I mean, he was 19 of 24 and he had less than 200 yards. So I think for Florida, that's really the game plan. Don't let Graham Mertz put you in a position to lose football games. That's exactly what they did. And I got to give credit to that Florida defense as well, because, they stopped the Tennessee team who had been running over everybody at this point in the season. And, Joe Milton, I'm not going to say he went back to true Joe Milton form, because I don't think he was necessarily that bad. I just think that Tennessee offense was out of rhythm. They had been relying on the rushing attack so heavy early on in this season. And now in this situation, it was like, hey, we're not running the ball effectively. Joe Milton, we need you to go be, we need you to go essentially be Hendon Hooker from last year and win us a football game. And that's just not who Joe Milton is right now. So
it's not.
I got to give credit all in the world to Florida. And I think Billy Napier has earned himself a little bit of a cooler seat.
Billy Napier got some ice packs for his butt. He got a little bit of relief from the hot seat. So it's crazy too. It's crazy to see how quick the tone changed on some of the Florida boards and in the group messages that you could find online. That people were calling for a scout 2 weeks ago, and now they're like, "Oh, wait till we play Georgia in a couple weeks." And I'm just like, it's unbelievable. But Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, plain and simple, I kind of only watched the first half. I forgot which game that I switched to after that. But really, Tennessee just kind of shot themselves in the foot all game. I mean, they had 5 false starts, including late in the game. They had a 4th and 1 in their own territory that they were going for to convert, and a false start made that impossible to do. I mean, Tennessee is 0-10 in Gainesville against Florida. I mean, that stat speaks for itself. Like I said, I just said the same thing. Execution was absolutely terrible. They used 2 timeouts early in the second half that they could have easily used in the fourth quarter to try to make a comeback. But going into the fourth quarter, only 1 timeout, down 2 scores. I mean, that's already a tough hill to climb. Trevor Etienne, 172 yards, a touchdown, just like Cottrell had touched on, including his 62-yard run in the first half. That was a fantastic breakaway for him. And honestly, if I had never heard of anything about Florida, but I knew football and I watched this game, I would have thought that Florida planned their game for a backup quarterback. That's what the game plan felt like with Graham Mertz at the helm. Short dump passes. I mean, their longest pass play was for 18 yards. I mean, they weren't pushing the ball down the field. They were doing short dump offs. I mean, they looked like they were literally prepping their freshman backup to just not lose them the game. So kind of like you said, I'm definitely all out on Graham Mertz. He'll have to show me something this season to get back in my good graces. But like I said, it was a good game. I didn't expect Tennessee to lose by 13. I did expect it to come down to a one possession game, just like I had mentioned last week. And we just didn't get the Tennessee team that I thought we were going to get last week.
I don't want to disappoint you, Alex. I'm just going to tell you from personal experience, and Control will probably back me up on this. That Graham Mertz is not going to show off anytime soon.
I was on the
I'm trying to be hopeful.
I was on the hype train for about half a season. I was like, he got to Wisconsin. I was like, oh, true freshman, one of their best quarterback prospects ever. I can get behind this kid. But for the past 2.5 years, I've been full-fledged front row passenger on the Graham Mertz thinks train. So
yeah. It got to the point where it was like if he was going to Ohio State or if they were at Michigan, like you're literally praying, be like, please tell me Graham Mertz is starting. Like that's like you wanted to hear that like they didn't bench him like 2 days before the game started because you knew what you're going to get, and that's what you're going to get. Now, obviously, if Billy Napier and those guys can continue to run the ball like that and make it work, where 3rd and 3, you let him throw the ball, and other than that, he's turning around and handing it off, and you're going to rely on the defense, then I mean, hey, listen, if you're the head coach, you got to play the strengths of your team, and however you win a football game is however you win a football game. I don't know how sustainable that is in the SEC. SEC East is a little bit weak. Mine is probably Georgia. So maybe he sneaks out 10 wins this year somehow, which would be crazy. But if he does, I mean, takes him to a good bowl game, and then you got to go find a quarterback. But let's move on to Eliminator. Sorry, Vols fans. This is, we got to do it. Cottrell, there they are. They're firmly, they've gone from the left to the right. The big Tennessee T. I mean, I guess technically they're hanging on by a thread, guys. I mean, like there is a way back, I guess, mathematically anyway. I'm just going to go ahead and say that they're not going to do it. But
yeah, I mean, when you have that tough of a road ahead of you, like the only way for Tennessee to get back is by beating Georgia. And I think at this point, none of us think that that's going to be something that happens. So I think for all intents and purposes here, Tennessee is dead in the water.
Do we know where that game is?
I don't know. I don't even know if it matters.
I mean,
it's in Tennessee. Georgia's playing in Tennessee on November 18th. But before that, they also have Alabama on the 21st of October. So they got one more good matchup that they need to win before that game. But yeah, if Tennessee loses to Bama, I mean, it's over. I mean, obviously.
The way Alabama looks right now, though, I mean, I don't know if that one would surprise me. I think Georgia would, but this is where we sit as of right now, going into week 4, and there's 2 very prominent schools on the left side, and one of them is coming to the other side next week. Not gonna choose sides on it. We're gonna preview it here in a couple minutes, but we're gonna have some more movement this week, which is fun.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. We're gonna have at least 2 teams move to the right, and I'm gonna guess that one of those teams in the pretender side that's hanging on by a thread is no longer going to be hanging on by a thread. That's all I'm saying, foreshadowing that.
Alex, I'm gonna agree with you. I don't think you're going to have that pretender side is going to have new faces on it, but I also think they might lose 1, maybe 2 faces. I think they might fall off the pretender side. I know we're going to get into these games here soon, but
so you're saying fall off the pretender side just into the grave, and we can start putting dirt on them. That's what you guys are saying.
I mean, yeah, potentially that, but also maybe they're not pretenders. Maybe they're not contenders either. Maybe they're outside the club waiting to get back in line to go to the VIP section on the contender side.
Oh, boy.
My only question is, I do agree with you on one team. If you're talking about LSU, then yes, but we'll talk about them later. But yes, like I said, and Justin also asked a great question in the on the page yesterday that we'll answer later regarding one-loss teams. So we'll actually get a chance at the end of the show to talk about which one-loss team we think will get into the college football playoffs. So make sure you keep that in the back of your mind for later, guys.
And the other thing too is that, on that contender side, there are some teams here that we don't have listed. So I got the graphic this week for the teams outside the club waiting to get in. So
oh well, let's see that. Because I think actually, if I'm being honest, there's one of these teams that I think should probably already be there.
Who?
If the
Oklahoma?
The one Utah. The one squarely in the middle. I mean, listen, they're ranked 11th. They're getting their best player back today. We're going to see how and they're playing a ranked team. So we're going to talk about that game as well in a couple of minutes. But I mean, I think they have as good as argument as some other teams as anybody to be on that list already, if I'm being honest. I mean, listen, I don't want to say anything, Alex, but I mean, there's a potential all 5 of these end up on the contender list next week. I'm just saying.
There's a chance, but there's also a chance that pigs fly. I'm just saying.
I will say too, looking at the matchups here, you have Utah. Utah has a ranked game this week. Colorado has a ranked game this week. Oregon State has a ranked game this week. Depending on how impressive or not impressive these guys look, they could easily be somewhere on the real list come next week. So, Bill, I think you make a great point there. And since we already talked about Colorado and Colorado State, you see how quickly a difference can make once one player goes out. Now, obviously, I'm never going to hope that any player gets injured or anything like that, but you saw how drastically of a different team Colorado looked at spurts without Travis Hunter in the game. Now, a lot of these schools do rely on, their heavy hitters, of course, but you really just never know with college football, man. You really never know. I think about Michigan without Blake Corum. I'm sure, as bad as that TCU game felt for you last year, Bill, I'm sure there's thoughts in the back of your mind hey, if Blake Corum played that game, maybe we win that game. I know for me, Marvin Harrison Jr. got knocked out the Georgia game. Not necessarily saying we win, but I always think hey, what happens if he finishes that game? So you never know with college football. Alex, I know you say if pigs fly, things like that, but I mean, you're really in a lot of these games today, you're one crazy thing away from the tide truly shifting, I think.
I have 3 of these teams losing today, so
fair. It's fair enough.
Yeah, I guess. I just want to know when somebody's going to make a genetic pig that can fly. Sorry.
Oh no!
Bacon on delivery.
Yeah, I mean, we can make dinosaurs. We can't make a pig. You can't get a pig some wings. Come on.
Bill, I think you're watching Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park's real. I don't know what you're talking about. But hey, let's get into the first example of how somebody could play their way in and somebody could just fall off the cliff, and we can start piling some dirt on the grave. We're going to go down to Death Valley. We're going to start right there in South Carolina. We're going to go Duke at Clemson, or Florida State at Clemson, sorry. Number 4, Florida State, hung on by their fingernails last week against Boston College. And I mean that is, if you watched any of that game, Boston College had a chance to win that football game.
Talk about shooting yourself in the foot.
Over and over and over. Did anybody else watch the Virginia game last night?
I didn't. I told you I was watching the Air Force and San Jose State.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I was watching San Jose State too.
I flipped over to that when it was over. That San Jose State fell off the boat. I don't know what happened to them. I mean, it's again different discussion for a different day. But we're going to talk about Florida at the end of this, or we're going to talk about Virginia at the end of the show, just for 2 minutes, because I've never seen anything like it. But let's go down to Florida State at Clemson. First matchup, Cottrell just hinted at it. Can Clemson somehow work their way back over to the contender side? Would Florida State maybe slip up and go to the pretender side? I've seen a lot of different people talk about this game. A lot of people are split on this game. The spread has gone from 3.5. It's down to 1.5 right now. It's almost a pick 'em. There's a lot of money coming in on Clemson. Florida State hasn't won there apparently in like 14 years. Clemson is not an easy place to go play. That is a difficult place to play. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let you guys talk about it because this is how I feel about it. I think if you get the Florida State team that played the first half against Boston College before they started shooting themselves in the foot over and over, I don't think this is much of a game. Now, will that Seminoles team show up and play for 60 minutes? Because if they do, I think they're way better than Clemson, and I think they're gonna beat Clemson handily. What am I missing? I'm gonna rely on you two guys because sometimes I look at a game and I look at it the wrong way, and I miss something, and it's something, the way I look at football games, I'm not seeing it in my head. I think Florida State's a better football team, and I don't think it's close. I think if they play well, I don't think Clemson's going to be able to keep up with that offense. I don't. I think Florida State has the ability to put up points quickly, and Clemson has shown they can't do that. They got Will Shipley, who's had a great year, but got to give Cottrell credit. I had more faith in Klubnik at the beginning of the year than I should have, and he's already proven Cottrell right once. I think he's going to prove Cottrell right twice today. I don't see him throwing for 350 yards and a couple scores, which is what I think Clemson's going to need for them to win this football game. What am I missing? I think it's Florida State big today, and everybody keeps telling me I'm crazy. What am I missing, boys?
I think that I don't want to say it's the fear factor, but yes, Florida State has won. They got a big win under their butt already. They beat an LSU team. Going into Death Valley is 100% a different animal. And I think Jordan Travis and company will be ready to play. I don't know what it is because I've been so down on Clemson all year. I picked Florida State to go to the ACC championship game. But there's something about this matchup that I just feel like Clemson is going to win here. I don't know if it was seeing the way Florida State played last week against Boston College. Like, I get it. They found a way to win. That's really all that matters. I think they're going to be up for this game. I think last week could have been somewhat a trap game. They went to Boston College when, they had their big red bandana game honoring the kid from the 9/11 events. But there's just something about this game. I'm picking Clemson to win, and I can't even give you a great reason why. I do think Will Shipley will have a good game, and I think Jordan Travis is going to be somewhat uncomfortable. I don't know how serious that injury is for him from last week. I do think Clemson's defensive line will be able to get after him and make him uncomfortable. And I got a feeling that Clemson finds a way to win this game. I don't think Dabo's going to be that far out of the college football playoff, 4 weeks into the season. So I'm expecting him to cook up something and find a way to win this football game.
And before I let Alex in here, I will say this. Boston College was like the quintessential trap game. To go up there, play a team that's not very good ever when you have Clemson next. And if you beat Clemson, you were literally smooth sailing pretty much into the ACC championship game. Jordan Travis, I think he's okay. I think he's probably a little banged up. From everything I've read, they say he should be good to go. I look at it also in this way. If Dabo doesn't get this team up for this game at home with already having a loss in conference, mind you, this might kind of be like the beginning of the end here. And I don't mean to jump that far ahead, but I feel like it kind of is. They've kind of taken a step back the last 2 years. Ever since Lawrence left, they have not been the same team. They've not been the same program. Dabo is a very outspoken critic of the NIL and all of that and the transfer portal. If we're 4 weeks into the season and Clemson has 2 losses in conference already, that would be crazy to me. And again, I'm picking Florida State. I think Florida State wins a football game. Alex, you heard me. I'm sticking on it. Cottrell, the traitor, already flipped to Clemson after bashing them all year, as usual. What do you think?
I mean, it's definitely going to be a game in the trenches. Florida State scored 30 points in 9 straight games. If they can do that today and make it 10 straight games, I don't see Clemson being able to keep up and score 30 points. So it's really about, can Florida State continue on their roll? And to me, it's really going to start with Jordan Travis. 729 yards passing, 8 touchdowns. He only has 17 rushing attempts for 96 yards. And if they really want to put Clemson away, he's going to have to use his feet today. Clemson allowed 98 rushing yards to Riley Leonard against Duke, and that was one of the reasons why Duke was able to kind of run away and convert those third downs on Clemson, was that Riley Leonard was able to use his feet to extend the plays and get out of the pocket and make some things happen. And I do know that Jordan Travis does have that capability, so I'm kind of looking forward to see what he's able to do with his legs this week. He hasn't used them that much this year. He's kind of been in the pocket, more of a passer, but today I expect him to kind of expand his repertoire and kind of step up in that Heisman race and use his legs a lot. I see him over 65 rushing yards today and probably a touchdown on the ground. As far as their defense goes, though, they need to force turnovers. I mean, Clemson's only allowed 3 sacks. Klubnik is not him. They need to get him. So they need to force pressure on him, make him force terrible passes to his wide receivers. And I mean, Klubnik only has 693 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. When you look at it from the outside perspective, it doesn't look too bad. But in order to right the ship, you got to give the ball to Will Shipley. He's got 225 rushing yards this year, averaging 6.3 yards a carry. If I had to say Florida State had a weakness on their defense, it would be up front. As far as the rushing yards, they've allowed over 100 rushing yards to all 3 teams this year. So if Clemson does want to stay in this game, they're going to have to control that line of scrimmage. But I do see that Florida State is going to be too much for them. I see Jordan Travis using his legs and his arm to beat them. I have Florida State minus 10.5. I do think it's going to be a 2-possession game.
All right. Got a couple of comments coming in. Justin Louder and Petey are going back and forth on the message boards here. Dabo's refusal to adapt to the new era or NCAA will be his downfall. I think you're already seeing that, and I kind of just touched on it. I agree with Petey. He's been outspoken about it, which I think has turned kind of kids away from even looking at Clemson. He went from having the top 5 class every year. He's been towards number 10 the last 2 years, and I think they're like at 13 or 14 right now for 2024. He's not recruiting as well, And listen, if there's one person on the show that respects kind of being an old school guy, a traditionalist type guy, it's me. I understand where Dabo is coming from. I was getting frustrated because Harbaugh was kind of starting to take the same approach. And then somebody finally sat him down and was like, listen, this is where college football is going. You either, it's the cliche, but it's adapt or die. Like those are your options, and he did. And you've seen it turn around the last 2 years. That's where I think Dabo is, though. And I don't mean that to like sound the alarms or be an alarmist or anything like that. But I think if he changes, you have Florida State kind of on the rise. Alice isn't going to like this, but I don't think you could say, that Mario is not doing a good job down in Miami, and they're at least not headed back in the right direction to where they were. Who knows what happens at Duke if that guy stays there and continues to build that program. I think he's going to get poached, so I don't think Duke's going to matter. But, and then you look at everything around you, like SEC, there's money everywhere. Big Ten, there's money everywhere now. You got to get on the same thing or retire. And if he retires, no shame in it. I mean, it's pretty much the reason Jay Wright retired from college basketball. He didn't want to deal with it. And you don't blame him if you don't want to. But, that being said, I think Clemson's on the wrong side of kind of a down cycle right now, if I'm being honest. But let's go to the next game. This game is weird. Ole Miss at Alabama. I feel like usually this would be a no-brainer where it's like, Ole Miss scores a lot of points. They're a nice team, but they're going to go to Alabama. They're going to get crushed. Not the case this year. Not in my opinion, anyway. Ole Miss has kind of been the darling. Alex is, SEC darling team this year. I'm going to let him go first on this one. If I was ever confident about Ole Miss having a legit shot to not only go in and cover in Tuscaloosa, but to win a game, it would be later this afternoon. I think Jackson Dart is playing great. He's finally figured out being a college quarterback after being in school for 6 years. He's finally figured it out. He's got it. And Alabama doesn't have a clue what they're doing at that position, which I think is a huge issue for Nick Saban. I don't think he has confidence in any of the three kids. I think he's literally trying to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And hopefully one of these kids gets a hot hand and he can get some confidence in one of them and have the team rally behind him. That's really what Nick Saban's at right now. I think it's a perfect prime opportunity for Lane Kiffin to go in there and beat Nick Saban. Not an easy thing to do. It's kind of a kick a guy when he's down type situation. I think we all agree Lane Kiffin is kind of that dude that would gladly kick him when he's down and kind of keep on going with his day.
Kick him twice, maybe.
Pour some water on him. It's that's kind of the Lane Kiffin type feel I get. So again, I think Jackson Dart's playing great though. I mean, he's going to be the best quarterback on the field, no doubt. Can Ole Miss's defense step up a little bit? But like I said, Alex has kind of been high on Ole Miss. Since we started the show, he campaigned to get them into the contender list, so they are there now. Got to earn your keep today. Got to pay your rent today, though, brother. So I will let you go first on this one. How do you see the game playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see Ole Miss earning their right into the club, as Cottrell says today against Alabama. Bama is +7 or 7-point favorites right now, which makes no sense to me, but that's all right. We're going to get into it right now. Jackson Darts looked fantastic this year, 852 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. And to go along with that, he's got 213 rushing yards to lead the way for Ole Miss in the rushing category. But realistically, Ole Miss needs to balance their attack. They need to get the ball out of Dart's hands. Last week, he had the ball on 32 different plays. That's more plays than with him not having the ball. He rushed the ball 14 times, throwing for another 18. He did look great, really, really efficient last week, but they got to get Judkins going. Bama's allowing 4 yards per carry last week to South Florida, which does not have a running back on their squad with the potential of Judkins. And Judkins is really having a really down year. He's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry, where last year he was averaging 5.7. That front line, the front needs to get some push for him, and we got to keep Dart vertical. They only allowed 1 sack last week against Georgia Tech, which allowed Dart to really pick apart the defense. And the closest game they've had all year was to Tulane, and the difference was that they gave up 4 sacks to Tulane. So if they can keep Jackson Dart vertical and get the ball out of his hands so that he doesn't risk injury, I think they're going to run away with this game. But Bama with Milroe back under center, will he have the confidence that Saban believes in him, or will he play scared because if he makes a mistake, he'll get replaced? It's going to be interesting to see how Milroe plays, being back under center. But you got to get offense confidence early. They only scored 17 last week. In the last 2 weeks, they've only converted 10 third downs, 10 for 29 in the last two games they've played. And, they got to get penetration. They only have 5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss this season, and they need to kind of up those numbers if they want to stay within this game. I have Ole Miss dropping over 30 points this game against Bama's defense. I have it 31-20, Ole Miss taking care of business.
Alex, my friend, we are on the same side of history here. I like Ole Miss to win this game as well. I think Jackson Dart is going to take care of business against that Alabama team. And I think, your point about Jalen Milroe and his confidence, I think that's the biggest factor in this game. He was a guy who was, coming into the season, Nick Saban basically said, he's my starting quarterback and, we're going to stick with him throughout the year. And then, things get rocky in that Texas game. He has a couple turnovers. Obviously, we saw last week in the USF game that, those 2 quarterbacks that were behind him also struggled. And Nick Saban said, we got to go back to Milroe because he's probably going to give us the best chance to win. He's the best athlete, and, he can have some of those X factor plays that, you don't necessarily script. And I think Alabama's going to need a lot of that. I don't think this isn't that Bama team where they have those explosive weapons on the outside. This isn't the Bama team where they have a great quarterback that can thread the needle. I think Jalen Milroe is still a project. I think at best he's a year away. I don't know if he's an Alabama quarterback. I think he can have some success if he transfers and goes to a smaller school. I think, we talked about schools earlier. that could potentially go out and get a quarterback. Maybe Jalen Milroe has success being a quarterback at like Michigan State with a different coach or something along the lines of that. I just don't see it happening here at Alabama. So I love Ole Miss here. I think they are live dogs. And remember, Texas was 7-point dogs against Alabama as well, and we saw how that game ended up. So I'm taking Ole Miss here. I do think it will be a little bit higher scoring. I like a 33-24 game, and Jackson Dart, fully submits that Ole Miss team as contenders. The one other thing that I do want to add in, when the rankings come out next week, if Ole Miss wins this game, I don't want to see Bama in the top 25. I know it won't happen because Ole Miss is ranked 15 right now, but I don't want to see that happen if they lose to this Ole Miss team at home by 10 plus points. Don't sell me that.
See, I wholeheartedly agree with you. If you're 2-2 through 4 weeks, I don't know how you could justify ranking them. I really don't. Both your losses would be at home. I don't, and their 2 wins at that point are against like
USF and Middle Tennessee State. Like, what does that mean? And the USF game was close.
Yeah,
right. We had Bama under upset alert the whole time they were playing last week.
They lose today. I think they're unranked, and I think that'll break the streak, which I know has been going on forever. So that will be an interesting fact to discuss next week. So
here's my question to think about: if Bama loses, do they switch quarterbacks again?
My opinion,
I think Milroe's the guy the rest of the year.
I was just say
I agree.
If Milroe's your guy, and you're trying to build him for next year, we're chalking a lot of this up to freshmen. Being a freshman and being an 18-year-old kid, and and obviously some of it is. You have to remember that. I do agree with Cottrell. I don't have the same feeling watching him play that I did with Jalen Hurts or a Bryce Young or any of those young freshmen that Nick has started before. Milroe sees a little bit more rough around the edges than those guys did. I think he needs more polishing and more time to develop. But that being said, if you're 2-2, your season's pretty much shot. At that point, you got to let him play. Like at that point, you're looking towards next year. Let him get a connection with these young receivers that he has as well. That's another big part of this. We're going to put a lot of this on Milroe's plate, but there is no Jamison Williams. There is no Devonta Smith. Jalen Waddle. They don't have any of those guys this year. It's just a really weird, the way the recruitment panned out and guys leaving early for the NFL and stuff, that they're breaking in a lot of young wide receivers with a freshman quarterback at the same time. And I know you say it's Alabama and it's this and that. I get it, but sometimes it's not instantaneous. I don't care if you're Nick Saban or not. And they're in just this weird cycle right now. So, I do agree with Cottrell. If they lose today, it's Milroe, and let them go out there and I don't want to say suffer, but you got to let him go out there and get his struggles out and figure things out in a game scenario and get it all out of his system. That's the fastest way you're going to make them better.
And I think the other thing, too, just to kind of even piggyback off that, is that you saw Buckner go in, you saw Simpson go in, and they couldn't move the ball against USF. So why would I bring in either one of those guys going up against, LSU, going up against Texas A&M in College Station? Like, I would say at this point, Milroe is your best option. Now, it's not a good option, but at the end of the day, it's your best option. So I think Saban's going to roll with them the rest of the year.
Agreed. All right, well, let's get in the old coast-to-coast jet, and we're going to go out west into the mountains. A little bit of a surprising game here. Not surprising for one team, but the other team with also starting a freshman quarterback has made their way into the rankings. That is the Chip Kelly UCLA Bruins at Utah Utes on the old side of the mountain. Not an easy place to play. Rumor has it that Cam Rising is going to start today. That seems to be the way he was trending. They've done pretty much everything but confirm it. I think they're just doing a little bit of gamesmanship there and not letting UCLA know for sure. Utah got to 3-0. They got their win without him. They treaded water to get to this point, which I think was the perfect scenario for them at the beginning of the year. Get to week 4 where they could bring him back, comfortably and completely healthy and let him play and go from there. And here we are. So Utah's 3-0. UCLA is 3-0. I don't think I mean, me personally, and a lot of other people, I don't think they thought UCLA was going to be this good this quick after losing what they lost last year. Off a very good football team. They like I said, they've rebuilt pretty quickly. They look pretty good. Got to go to Utah again. I say this a lot, but Utah, it's not an easy place to play. A little bit easier this time of year. You go in there, and the end of October, early November, though, it's downright dreadful. But I'm gonna defer to the West Coaster on this one as well, because it's a Pac-12 game. So Utah Jesus back under center for the Utes. What do you think, Alex?
I actually am really excited for this game. I think this is a match between really fantastic teams. And if I have to say anything, it's Dante Moore. Please stand up. He committed to Oregon last year before switching over to UCLA, so I am familiar with his tape. Dude is a stud. I watched week 1 anticipating Dante Moore getting in the game for a few snaps to kind of see what he was playing with. I did not expect him to take over the starting job, though. After when Dante Moore went in week 1, I forgot who they were playing at the time, but the offense looked different. His composure, how he controlled the line of scrimmage, how he kind of told his wide receivers what he wanted them to do. He had full control of that offense, and as a freshman, that's something you definitely want to see, and that's not something that you can teach. That's something that he has to bring in with himself. And Dante Moore, he's number 1 this year in yards per pass, 19.2 yards per completion, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, Dante Moore is the truth, and I do think that with him at the helm, if he stays for 3 years at UCLA is going to be it's going to be a heavy topic of conversation over the next 3 years. But they got to also remain explosive. I mean, they're averaging 527 yards of total offense a game. Utah is only averaging 357. If you look at this paper on matchup, you're going to say UCLA is going to run away with this game. They're only allowing 69 yards per game on the ground, and they have 11 sacks this season. This is not the game that if I was Utah, I'd be excited to bring Cam Rising back for. If I was Cam Rising, I'd be a little nervous myself. First game back against a defensive line that's going to pressure me like that and force me out of the pocket. They're going to need to control the line of scrimmage, and they're going to have to give Jaquindon Jackson the ball. He's 3-0 when he runs for over 100 yards. So look for them to feed him early and often to get Cam Rising kind of comfortable with the offense. But ultimately, I do have UCLA covering the 6-point spread and winning this game by 3. I got a 32-29 game with Dante Moore being the difference maker.
Cottrell, what do you got, bud?
So, I mean, I appreciate Alex being in on the high school recruiting train. Obviously, with Dante Moore being a former Oregon commit, I know that's a familiar name for him, but he's 100% right with everything he said. Dante Moore is a kid who, in this class, he almost got outshadowed, in this class because you had Malachi Nelson going to USC. And then, of course, Arch Manning was the talk of the town for the past 3 years at this point, because of that family lineage. But in my opinion, Dante Moore has been, and I think he will be, the best quarterback in this class. He was the 2022 Gatorade Player of the Year for high school for a reason. He has all the talent in the world. Now, I was expecting him to win the UCLA job from the beginning, but when he was named the backup, out the gate from Chip Kelly, I was kind of surprised by that, and I thought he was still going to be a year away. But again, like Alex mentioned, when he got his opportunity, he went in and he's played lights out. That's a kid who is not afraid of the moment at all. And I think talent-wise, he is one of the most talented kids in the entire country. And he's a name that at this point, not a lot of people know about if you're not too familiar with high school recruiting, just because, he's so fresh on the scene at UCLA. I think 3 years down the line, you're going to be talking about this kid being a future potential, first pick in the NFL draft. I think he's that kind of talent. And I think he's going to take care of business today at Utah. Cam Rising, his first game back, I think there's going to be a lot of rust there. If I was Utah, like Alex said, I'd almost be cautious to play him this game. Now, I know, at this point, you beat a UCLA team. You're in the thick of it in the Pac-12, and you have, at that point, legit CFP claims and aspirations there. But I just don't see that happening for that Utah team. I think Cam Rising struggles a bit, and I think Dante Moore puts it on him. I like UCLA in this one. And I don't necessarily want to say I think they roll, but I think this is one of those games, 34-24. I think UCLA, 2 possessions, and, I think they take care of business on the road.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you guys. I think Utah pulls this out at home. I read a bunch of interviews with Chip Kelly and their OC about Dante Moore, and they both have said how amazed they were of how not cocky he is, but confident in who he is and how unflappable he is for an 18-year-old, and everything. Like, they haven't handed him anything yet that they feel like he couldn't handle, which is ultimately why he ended up winning the starting job. And they just kind of kept going with him from there. Cam Rising coming back. Listen, UCLA's got a great defensive line. Utah's got one of the best offensive lines in the country. I'm not saying UCLA doesn't get their shots on him here and there, but Utah's they're gonna try to run the football. They're gonna block for Cam Rising. I think especially early in the game, be a lot of quick throws to get the ball out of his hand, let him get his timing down, get up to speed with the game, and kind of let him get comfortable and let him get into the flow of the game. UCLA's first real away game in a hostile territory. Again, Utah's a very loud place to play. It's not easy to play there. I'm not saying he doesn't have a good game. I think he does. I think maybe he makes a mistake, somewhere late that kind of costs them. The spread's only 2.5. It's not 6.5. It's 2.5 for Utah, which kind of tells you what they're expecting from the get-go. I think it's a very close game. I think it's a field goal game. I'll go 34-31 Utah. I think they pull it out at home somehow. But I still think Dante Moore shows out, and I think a lot more people will know his name come Sunday morning than know it now. So we will move on from that game. We're going to stay in the Pac-12 though, and I think this has the ability to sneakily be, one of the best games of the weekend. Alex Elmore's in-state arch nemesis, the Oregon State Beavers, are going to travel to Washington State. Ranked versus ranked. Washington State is quietly snuck into the bottom of the rankings. Oregon State has looked like a different team with a very stress-free, playing as the moment comes. DJ at quarterback. Doesn't look like Clemson DJ. Looks like a completely different kid. No stress, no expectations. Doesn't have Dabo yelling at him. Doesn't have the media in his face every 3 seconds. And he looks like a kid that's just having fun playing football. And he has looked amazing since he's gotten there. Pac-12 again. This will be the last one. I'll switch to you, Cottrell, first for the next one. We get back to the Big Ten. Going to let iBlack lead off with this one. What do you got?
Yeah, Oregon State at Washington State, the Pac-2 championship game, as a lot of us have dubbed it.
Wow.
Oregon State, I don't ever really like to talk positively about the Beavers, but today I will change that up just a little bit. DJ has looked fantastic this year, 630 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Numbers aren't that glamorous, but you know what? It's also hard to have a quarterback with glamorous numbers when you got a running back like Oregon State does. Damian Martinez has 351 yards on the ground this year. He's averaging just under 9 yards per attempt. Dude is a beast. He only got 1 touchdown this year, so they need to get him in the end zone a little bit more than that. But they need to, they got to expose, Washington State needs to expose Oregon State secondary. They're averaging over 400 yards per game passing. And the main thing I've noticed about their loss, or their toughest game they had this year, was against Wisconsin, and they only had 208 passing yards. So if the Oregon State Beavers can limit their passing attack, control the ground, run the ball with Martinez, I do see them kind of being able to score early and often. Washington State is very one-dimensional. Their leading rusher is actually Cameron Ward, who is their quarterback, as we all know, who's actually tearing it up this season. Oregon State has the number 1 defense in the Pac-12, and I expect them to apply a lot of pressure. And they only allowed 1 sack all season and only allowed 9 tackles for loss against their offense. I don't see this game as close of a matchup as a lot of people see it. I do have Oregon State winning by 2 touchdowns. I have them winning 35-21. I do think the Oregon State's defense and running attack that's going to be able to control the clock and control the game. I do have Oregon State winning by 2 touchdowns with Cameron Ward throwing his first interception today. And Washington State's kind of out of it for the year. I am.
So I think that before I even break down the game, it is a disservice that this game isn't a 10 o'clock game. Why in the hell is this game competing with you got the next game that we're going to be talking about with Iowa and Penn State, and then competing with Notre Dame and Ohio State? Like, that's just dumb. Two West Coast teams. This could have been a 10 o'clock game that everybody tuned in to watch. Now, this is going to be the game that sneaks under the radar when both these teams at this point deserve to be seen. I had the opportunity to see. I know you guys have both seen, these teams play so far because we love college football, but this should have been the game of the night. Now we got to settle for Washington playing some unranked school and USC getting to beat the snot out of Arizona State. It's just very dumb on the schedule maker's part here.
There's no way that either this game or, like we said before, the Oregon Colorado game should have been the 10 o'clock game. I get it. USC's on. They're flashy in Washington, but they're both
not playing anybody.
They're not playing anybody. They're gonna beat the crap. Both those games are 35+ point spreads. Like, I don't want to watch that. Like, give me. I would stay up to watch this game at 10 o'clock too. Give me this at 10 o'clock then. I'll flip right over from Notre Dame, Ohio State. Watch this. Yep. Like, somebody dropped the goddamn ball on ESPN. Somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was first and foremost. I had to get that out the way. But again, Alex, we are on the same boat here. We're two peas in a pod today. So I'm rolling with Oregon State as well. I think DJ is going to take care of business. But I do also want to give Cam Ward his flowers. He's played great so far this year. That Washington State team has gone as he's gone. He's thrown the ball well, and like Alex mentioned, he is their leading rusher as well. The funny thing about him being their leading rusher, he's not really a rushing quarterback. It's really just, things break down and he goes takes care of business. So he's definitely a gamer. I think he will have that Washington State team up to play for this game. But I think this is the last week where Oregon State is outside the club. I think they're going to be full-fledged contenders come next week, and they're going to have that beaver on the contender side of the bracket here.
So I'm going to agree with you guys. So if you're at home and betting this game now, promptly bet your mortgage that Washington State's going to win the football game. I will say this. I don't want to say Pullman is a hard place to play. It's a tricky place to go win a football game, though. We've seen them before back in the Mike Leach days, back when Minshew Mania was there. Not an easy place to go in and always win a football game. Cam Ward's been great, just like Cottrell and Alex both mentioned. That being said, I think DJ's better. I think DJ's been playing better. I like Oregon State's offense overall more with the running attack. Like they ran play action off of it. DJ's been, if nothing's there, he's been tucking it, taking the 7 or 8 yards, living to see another down. He's playing smart football. He's playing football we all thought what he was going to develop at Clemson. I like Clemson as well. I like Clemson by double digits. I think this is a close game at halftime, though. I think Washington State can stay in it. And the longer it goes, the more, the tougher it gets for Oregon State to win. But I think Oregon State pulls away a little bit in the second half. I think they're absolutely on the contender board next week. We'll put the Beaver right next to the old green O just for Alex. I'm sure that'll make them really happy.
If they're even still over there.
Ooh.
Did I mention Ohio State's losing today? No? Okay.
All right. Settle down. We're getting there. Love that I have no dog in this fight today. I'm just going to sit here and watch us underperform against Rutgers again.
I was going to say, you lose. We're dropping you off the graphic completely, not even contender.
I won't be on the outside no more. You'll get my resignation will be in the chat by about 3:35 if that happens. I'm done. No, but I like Oregon State to get it done. I just like their brand of football right now. I wish this was a 10 o'clock game. I think it'd be a great atmosphere up in Pullman for it to be a night kickoff. It would have been a great way to round out the night. Instead, I'll watch USC and Washington play for 10 minutes and be up by 20 points, and that'll be the end of that. So we're gonna switch conferences here, switch coaches, or switch coasts. Excuse me. Coming back to the East Coast, Alex. Whiteout game. A lot of people maybe myself included, have Penn State on maybe upset alert here. I know it's a whiteout game. Iowa, traveling to Penn State, Happy Valley. You're going to have 103,000 crazy Penn State Nittany Lion fans waving their white towels. Can Iowa go in? Does Iowa have a shot? Can they keep it close? Can they not turn the ball over? Can Cade McNamara make enough plays against that defense? Cottrell, my fellow Big Ten expert, what do you think?
No. I'm gonna keep it plain and simple. No.
All right, Alex.
I don't think Cade can go in and roll with that Penn State offense. I do think Cade will have chances to score. But the only reason why I say I think he's going to have chances to score is because I think Penn State and that Nittany Lion offense is going to put up points in this one. I get it. Iowa is, a good defensive team. But I think Drew Aller is going to have a great game in this one. I think Penn State scores 35 plus in this one. And I like Penn State to roll. I'm thinking 38-17. Like I think Penn State takes care of business at home, and they send Cade McNamara back to Iowa pretty sad.
This is going to be the flip of what I just said for the previous game. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. If Penn State gets into any score that starts with a 3, this game is over. Penn State was very, very, very underwhelming last week. The offense did not look good. Defense played great in the sense that they had 6 turnovers, some of which were calls, some of which were not. Illinois' quarterback, I think, might be colorblind. I'm not sure. He does not differentiate between jerseys when he throws the football. And he threw the ball directly to Penn State 3 times last week. Cade is not a world beater. Cade is, and again, for watching him play, Cade is a guy that what you give him, he's going to take. He'll take his selective shots down the field, hope to make them. He's a guy that's going to keep you in every game. Might not necessarily win you a game. He's not going to lose you a game. That's what Cade McNamara is. Good kid. Iowa has to get this game in the second half somehow. If they can, I think it becomes interesting because then I think the pressure reverts back to Drew and that offense to make plays, which they've struggled to do at times against good defenses. Illinois has a good defensive line. They have a decent secondary, nowhere near what it was last year, and they struggled to move the ball a lot of that game. They couldn't really get Singleton going. I think it's a tricky game. I don't think it's, I'm ultimately going to go with Penn State. I think Penn State wins the football game because I don't think Cade and that offense have the explosiveness to go in there and score 24, 27 points, which is what I think it's going to take to win. I think this game is close, though. Could be wrong. Been wrong, a bunch of times before. Be wrong, again. But I will not be shocked at all if Iowa covers this 14.5, even covers it into single digits. I think it's kind of that typical kind of bruising, Big Ten type football. Alex, what do you say?
Well, one thing that really grabbed my attention was the weather forecast for the day. It is going to be raining for most of the game, which I think will eliminate a lot of points off the board. I think that both teams are going to go on the ground, and I think ultimately the game is decided on the ground between LaShawn Williams and Katron Allen. Whoever has the better game is going to be the team that wins it. Penn State forced 5 turnovers last week, like you had mentioned, against Illinois, and that's the only reason why that score was as lopsided as it was. You eliminate that factor, I think that Penn State-Illinois score is a lot closer than what it looks. Kind of like, Bill, you said the same thing. And Iowa, they really need to win their turnover battle. They've only forced 1 turnover per game this season, and Iowa needs to come in there with a chip on their shoulder. They've won the last 2 games at Penn State. Granted, the last one was in 2020 with no fans in the stadium. So obviously today's atmosphere is going to be much different than that atmosphere was. But LaShawn Williams is averaging 8.6 yards per carry. He needs to continue that. They got to get the ball out of Cade McNamara's hands. He's thrown 3 interceptions this year to only 4 touchdowns. He is not making smart decisions with the ball, and Penn State's defense is just as good, if not better than Iowa's this year as far as on paper. So we will see kind of how that goes. There's a lot of missing weapons on offense for Iowa. They got their first and second string running backs out, and they're starting tight end. So look for Eric All to really step up and be Cade McNamara's safety net right there on the outside. And Allen needs to improve. He threw for under 50% last week, 16 for 33, barely crossed over 200 yards passing. And Penn State's offense has only had 9 plays for over 20 yards this season, so they're not very explosive like they have been in the past. But we will see kind of how the weather dictates this game. I do have Penn State winning. However, I do have it being a very sloppy 17-14 game, typical Big Ten Iowa game. With Iowa having a chance in the fourth quarter, I do have Iowa covering that 14.5 point spread, though.
All right. Yeah. And listen, I will tell you this. Any game on the East Coast today, I mean, from pretty much, I would say Virginia North, is going to be a mess. We're getting the outer bands of that hurricane. It's been raining nonstop here, cloudy. It's kind of cold, like 50s. First day of fall, showed up with a bang. I looked out the window this morning. Everything was dark and gray. Had a nightmare. I felt like I was in Columbus, Ohio. It was crazy.
It's sunny here, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, man, every squirrel finds a nut, I guess. But no, listen. I mean, points are going to be the premium. If your team can't run the ball today and you're playing on the East Coast, you might struggle a little bit. So if you are betting, keep that in mind. You know, I'm not a huge proponent of checking the weather when you bet, but today is one of those days. I would tell you, depending on what games you're laying money on, if you happen to partake in those things, I would check the weather forecast if you're betting anything on the East Coast, because it is nasty out here. But here we go. We arrived at the part of the show which we've been waiting for weeks. Like I said, we are fortunate that we have both an Oregon mega fan and an Ohio State mega fan on this show, on this panel, because the two biggest games of the week by far are Colorado at Oregon, Ohio State at Notre Dame. Alex, I hate to do this to you. There can only be one main event of every show, buddy. I'll give you co-main status. It's like a good quality. It's like a good quality, bantamweight title fight. You're not getting the middleweights or you're not getting the heavyweights. You can't get the John Jones fight status, but
you could headline a fight night. So if this matchup was week 3, you would have had top dog status. But
why are you throwing fight night shade, bro? That's not nice.
Yeah,
He's accepted his co-main status.
You can headline.
It's a fight night, though.
We saw Valentina.
Valentina
just headlined a fight night. It's no shade.
Oh wow. Now you're saying you can be a women's fight, not even a men's fight now. Jesus Christ, it's getting crazy in here.
Hey, Valentina's
goat. Unless she's fighting Grasso. But anyway, I digress. Here we go. Number 19, Colorado. 2 at Oregon. Minus 21.5 point favorites. Austin Stadium, a absolute hard place to go play and win a football game. It's loud. Be like 19 different colors in the stadium because you guys can't pick one goddamn uniform scheme to go with. What are you guys wearing today, by the way?
Oh, I actually haven't even seen what we're wearing today. I do know that they organized the stadium, so they basically told everyone in one row to wear green and the next section to wear yellow, so they're alternating the whole stadium today. I'm not quite sure. I think they're wearing green today, though. I'm not sure which ones, though.
They're wearing green?
I think. I haven't seen this week's
came out
uniform.
with something.
See, that's why I hate this too. Because I guarantee you, if this was a primetime game, they'd be in a special color combo. ESPN just dropped the ball on this across the board. Not happy. But here we go. Prime time, 3-0. This is the absolute last time I'm giving Coachella flowers. Coachella's the only person on earth. I said this on Wire to Wire. The flowers are all dead. It's fall. They're dying. There's no more flowers left to give. Flower shops are too damn expensive. I'm giving him no more flowers. I'm out of money. I'm done. This is it.
Okay, I got the jersey for the day real quick before I move on. The Ducks will wear their matte black helmets, a green uniform, yellow numbers, and black pants.
No, they're wearing black pants?
They're wearing black pants with their new cleats.
See, it would have been what those look like if they had the matching green pants, though.
See, the only reason I like this, though, because I feel like there's some gamesmanship in this. If they went green, Colorado probably could have worn their blacks, which is what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And not, so now they're going to switch out and not let Colorado wear black. I like this.
I will say, though,
I'm here for the petty. I love the petty.
The Colorado white jerseys are clean.
They're clean. They're crisp. I like it. Colorado's classic is the black, though. The black on the black with the gold helmets, which is clean in its own right. I like that. They won't admit to that, but I'm telling you, that's part of it. Like I'm here for the petty gamesmanship stuff. I love that stuff. But let's get into it. We got to get into it because we still got another game. We got to go through pick 'em. And we got a lot to talk about in the next game. This game, I think it's going to draw a lot of numbers. I do. That being said, I think it's the only show at 3:30 that's worth watching. Assuming the game stays close. No Travis Hunter after last week's cheap shot, whatever you want to call it, illegal hit. I hope he gets better soon. The kid is a tremendous talent. It's taking a tad a bit of the luster off this game. That being said, we're going to find out real quick. Is Colorado for real? Where is Oregon? I think this game has the potential to have a lot of points. I'm not going to say too much here because I want Alex to take the show here. This is his team. Your show, brother. Take it.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this game today. Oregon is 21-point favorites today, which seems a bit steep, but we'll get into why right now. And for this game, something's got to give. Colorado has 10 takeaways this season, and they're number one in the country for that. In that right, Oregon has not turned the ball over at all this season. So something's got to give. Either Colorado is going to step up and force turnovers, get some extra possessions, or the Ducks are going to control the ball, control the clock, and ultimately take care of business. Colorado, in order for them to win, they need to stay efficient. Sanders is throwing at 78% completion. Granted, a lot of their passing game is extended run attacks, which is short dump offs, which is kind of why I believe their rushing stats are a little bit skewed. A lot of their plays are just extended handoffs that are short dump offs, which I think of as a run play, but just it shows up as a passing stat. So I do think that that 78% completion percentage is a bit skewed because of that fact. But they only have 5 sacks this season on their defensive front. And without any penetration, that's one of the reasons why they have one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. They're allowing 5 yards per carry at Colorado. The Ducks are averaging 7.2 yards per carry. I mean, the every single Colorado weakness is a Duck strength, and vice versa. So I see why a lot of people think this game is going to be a blowout. But I also see Colorado coming ready to play. I had Deion Sanders preparing them very well this week. They were doing practices with 2 humongously loud speakers 5 yards behind the offense as they were running plays to practice for the intensity of the sound of Autzen Stadium. And if you guys have never been there, that place can get rocking. That's one of the top 10 toughest places to play in the whole country. But Oregon, in order for them to really pull away from this game, they're going to have to limit the long handoff. Like I was saying, get penetration on the edges, prevent those screen plays, because once Colorado wide receivers get the ball in their hand, they are shifty and they're going to make some plays happen. Kind of like the 49ers in the NFL, those yards after the catch, that's where they get all of their meat and potatoes done on the offense. And we need to force 3rd and long. Colorado is a one-dimensional team. If you constantly have them in 3rd and 6 and longer, and you are able to jam on the line on the defensive end, I can't talk today. I'm very excited about this game, if you can't tell. But you got to force 3rd and long as against Colorado, force them to be one-dimensional, which they already are. Obviously, with the loss of Travis Hunter, that takes away a weapon. But this is by far, so far, the best quarterback battle of the season with Sanders and Bo Nix. I don't see Bo Nix even being the reason the Ducks are able to pull away this game. I see Bucky Irving getting a full game worth of reps. So far this season, he's only played about 3 quarters at the most due to the fact of Oregon running away with the scores so far. And I have Bucky Irving going for over 200 yards this game of offense, and the Ducks running for over 300 yards with Bo Nix not needing to pass the ball as much. I have Oregon winning 42-30. I do have Colorado covering that 21-point spread, though. That seems a little bit steep.
Justin, I do want to take you up on that offer. I am game. Ohio State, Oregon at Autzen, that would be phenomenal. Sign me up. I'll kind of go next here because again, me and Alex are on the same wavelength today. And I'm loving it
for now.
Yeah, for now. But I also have Oregon winning, but I do think this is going to be I think this is going to be a close game. Two, I think Colorado at some point in the second half will be winning this game, but I think Oregon takes over. And a big part of that is, like Alex mentioned, Bucky Irving. I think he is going to have a phenomenal day. I can easily see him going for 200 plus in this one. I do think Bo Nix will turn the ball over for the first time this season against that Colorado defense, but I just don't think Colorado has enough gas in the tank to stop this Oregon team. Ultimately, I see this game being Oregon 48. I think Colorado gets up to 38. I think it is a 10-point game, somewhere in there. But I think Oregon is going to take care of business. I just think that the loss of Travis Hunter definitely is going to prove big in this one. And, if I'm Bo Nix should have all the confidence in the world because he has the talent and things like that. But just knowing that Travis Hunter isn't over there, I think that gives you even more confidence. So I think Oregon is going to take care of business in this one. But Shedeur Sanders is too good of a quarterback to not keep this game somewhat close. So I think he's going to get his in this one as well. He's not a guy that turns the ball over. His one interception so far this season was on a pass that really should have been completed. His receiver didn't make the play, and ultimately Colorado State got the interception last week. But I think Shedeur is going to, really make that Oregon Ducks team work for this win. And I think they will, just because they're going to rely so heavily on Bucky Irving in this one.
I'm going to agree with both of you guys. I think Oregon wins. I think they win by like 14 or 17. I don't think they're in any danger of ever losing. I think Colorado has enough offensively to stay in the game. I think Shedeur Sanders will make enough plays, just like both of you guys said. I think he's too talented to go up there and get blown out. I don't see it. I think defensively, I think Colorado's going to have a really hard time slowing down Oregon, though. I don't know where the answer comes from defensively for Colorado. If you want to stack the box against Bucky, I think Bo Nix is going to destroy you taking shots downfield. And if you drop back to take the pass away, take the deep game away, I think they're going to run the ball down Colorado's throat. So I think it's a pick your poison, bend but don't break. Try to slow it down. The problem I see with that is if you slow Oregon down, don't let them score quick strike wise where they're scoring in 2 to 3 minutes. I actually think that hurts Colorado. Because I think Oregon has no problem going on a 7-minute drive to put up 7 points. I think that makes it become almost do or die every possession down the stretch for Colorado, where they're going to have to score. That's when you force passes. That's where you make mistakes. That's where you make a turnover that breaks the back. Ultimately, I think that's what happens. I think Shedeur Sanders plays his heart out today. I think he has a good game, puts up good numbers. I don't see any scenario where Colorado's defense slows down Oregon today. I just don't see it. Oregon's got a great offensive line. They can pass block. They can run block. I know Colorado's been opportunistic defensively, but like we already said, Oregon doesn't turn the ball over through 3 games. They're not sloppy with it. They're not going to hand Colorado the ball. They're not. You might get one. You might get an interception. You might have Bo try to do something silly. You might have a tip pass, like stuff like that happens. But them turning the ball over 2 or 3 times, I don't see it. And I think that's the number they need to get to have a chance to win this football game. I like Oregon big, maybe not to cover that 21-point number because it's a big number. I think they win by 14 to 17. I think that's where we're at. I think it's comfortable. I think it's a big win at home. I know Colorado's went to TCU. TCU is not going to Oregon. It's not the same thing. It's not. It is another step up on the notch of playing at a big boy stadium. Alton is in that same discussion as, Happy Valley, Michigan, Ohio State, Tuscaloosa. It's in that discussion. Death Valley. It's in that discussion. That's where it is. I like Oregon today. I like them big. I do. I think Alex will be a happy camper by about 6 o'clock today, which will give him about an hour to gloat before we get to the main event, which is what we all came for today. The number 6 Ohio State Buckeyes are traveling to South Bend, which, for the record, is a miserable freaking place, but it's neither here nor there. Notre Dame, gorgeous campus. The rest of the town sucks. There's nothing else there. It's so boring. That being said, number 6 Ohio State Buckeyes. Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson and company. Going down the road to South Bend, Indiana, play the number 9 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Sam Hartman, the world beater so far, has looked incredible. Little kind of, underlying, cool storylines. Marcus Freeman, obviously, ex-Ohio State player. Gets a second crack at the Buckeyes this year. As always, Cottrell's got the most skin in this game. I'm going to let him go first. How do you see it playing out, buddy? Are your Buckeyes victorious? What do you got?
Absolutely. Ohio State's going to win this game. And I think, the cool storyline thing that you're talking about, I think it goes deeper than just Marcus Freeman. Like, obviously, Marcus Freeman and his Ohio State ties is, the big storyline here. But James Laurinaitis was on Marcus Freeman's staff last year, and now he's the linebackers coach at Ohio State. I do think, to an extent, I think he knows what that Notre Dame team will like to run. And, he knows exactly defensively what their linebackers try to do, because I'm sure he's starting to try to instill that in some of the backers here at Ohio State. But I do think Sam Hartman is going to have a good game in this one. I think there is a little bit more intrigue at the running back position. I think there's a lot of love being shown to Estime, as he's deserved so far throughout this season. But I don't necessarily think that he's going to have that great of a game in this one. I know at this point in the year he has over 500 yards, but I think Ohio State's defensive line and the way that their linebackers are playing right now will do a good job to contain him. The one question mark that I have in this game is really going to be secondary. On the one side, Denzel Burke, I think he's playing like one of the best cornerbacks in the country. I'd probably have him at like 5 or 6 right now, somewhere around there in terms of corners in the country. But on the other side is really where your question marks come in. Davison Igbinosun is a transfer that came in, and he's ultimately been getting the start. But that spot there and then in the slot is really where those question marks lie. So I think if Ohio State can limit Sam Hartman's big play ability through the air, I think Ohio State's going to be in a great position to win this one. I think with Ohio State and the way their defensive line is playing up front, if they can do a good job at, keeping Notre Dame behind the sticks, force those third and longs like Alex was talking about with Colorado in the last game, I think Ohio State's going to be in a great spot, because in that way their pass rushers can pin their ears back and start to get after the quarterback. Now on the offensive side of the ball, I do think Kyle McCord and company will be able to take care of business. I actually think Travion Henderson struggles in this one as well, because Notre Dame does have a good defense. They have linebackers that flow, and they can, ultimately, control the trenches. So I like what Notre Dame does up front. But I think that opens up a big game for, I think this could be a Julian Fleming game where all that attention is on Emeka Egbuka and on Marvin Harrison Jr. I think, teams forget that Julian Fleming is our number 3 receiver here. And he's also a 5-star kid that has all the talent in the world. So I think this could be a big game for him across the middle. I like Ohio State winning this one. I think it is going to be a little bit, in the middle ranges in terms of scoring. I could see this one being a, 28-20 kind of game, but I like Ohio State to win this one. 31-20, somewhere in there.
Alex, how you see it playing out, buddy?
So for me, there's two matchups that I'm excited to see. And that's Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Notre Dame's entire secondary. Obviously, as we know, Notre Dame likes to mix up coverages, sometimes work out with 6 defensive backs, and I think that them mixing up coverages is going to get to Kyle McCord. Being this is McCord's first true big game. Cottrell, am I right with that? This is probably his biggest game of his college career so far?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
Perfect. So what I'm assuming is that, the first quarter, he's going to come out with a little bit of jitters. He might even have he might have an interception in the first quarter before he settles down. And I do think that first quarter slow start is going to be ultimately the difference in this game. I see Hartman, who has 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I see him having a big game. The other matchup I want to see is Estime versus OSU's defensive line. Ohio State's only allowing 83 yards per game on the ground. Estime is leading NCAA in rushing yards with over 500 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns. For me, it's really just about who's going to pound, who wants this game more. And I think Notre Dame being at home is going to be the difference. I think they're going to disguise coverages really well. I think that they're going to confuse McCord in his first big game. They've already forced 5 interceptions. I see 2 more this game coming out of from the Notre Dame's defense. And realistically, if Ohio State is going to win this game, they need to get Trayvon Henderson going from the start. They can't let McCord decide if this game's a win or a loss. They have to decide on the ground, on the ground, and that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I'm not going to say anything because I am picking this game, but you kind of get the gist.
Ooh. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna try to stay brief on this because I kind of said my full thing on Wednesday. Not gonna lie, Cottrell, I almost flipped on this game. I really did. The more I've thought about it the last couple of days, I almost was prepared to come on here and issue a retractment from my Wednesday pick and go Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a great football game, and I mean that in the sense that I think you're going to see 2 very talented teams show up and play a high-level football game. I think this is the game of the day. We previewed it last for a reason, not just because Cottrell's connection to Ohio State. I think it's the best game you're going to watch today. I think it's going to be a high-level football game. I slightly disagree with Cottrell. I think Trayvon Henderson has to have a big day for Ohio State, and I think he's capable of doing it. This is a kid. I've only known Cottrell for about 2.5 years. We've talked about him and obviously Donovan Edwards from Michigan numerous times about them coming in together, playing against each other. The kid is special. He's been banged up the last 1.5 years. He just hasn't been healthy. He's finally healthy this year. The kid's an all-world back. If you're not familiar with him or you haven't seen him play, watch tonight. The kid's great. I think they need to do everything they can to take the pressure off Kyle McCord in this game early. If you can let Kyle McCord settle in, get his confidence back from last week, and what I mean by that is let the game slow down for him a little bit. Atmosphere is going to be nuts tonight in South Bend. It's a night game. They are going to be ready. It is anything you could do to get him comfortable and into a rhythm. Let his pulse, let his heart rate slow down a little bit and make good decisions, I think is an advantage for Ohio State. Obviously, I like Notre Dame's defense. I do. I think they have a very good defensive line. I don't think Ohio State's going to push them around. I think as long as Ohio State can be effective with Trayvon, it allows them to run play action. It allows them to take their shots down the field with Marvin Harrison Jr. and company. I think that's the key to the game. I think Notre Dame's going to be able to run the ball. So one thing I slightly disagree with. I think the bigger advantage between the lines is Ohio State's offensive line or Notre Dame's offensive line against Ohio State's defensive line. They've debatably the best tackle combination in the country, Notre Dame. I think they're going to be able to run the ball against Ohio State. I think it comes down to can they contain Sam Hartman, and if they can, I think they have a good shot to win the game. I'm going to stick with my original one because I don't want to flip flop on it. I did say on Wednesday, and I'll say it again. I will not be surprised if Notre Dame wins this football game. I won't. I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to stick with what I said on Wednesday, though. I think overall, both sides of the ball, everything considered, I think Ohio State's just a little bit better. I just think they're a little bit better of a team. I don't know. I don't want to compare coaches, but if you put a gun to my head, I think Ryan Day's the better coach. We've seen him not necessarily coach the best game or call the best game in big games. I don't think you see that tonight. And I don't want to come down on Marcus Freeman because he's still new, but he doesn't have a big game win to make me feel any differently about that that prediction either. So I'm going to stick with what I said. I think it's a 33-31, 35-32 type game. I think it's a great football game. I think the Buckeyes go into South Bend and somehow sneak out of there with a big W for the program. And they can kind of coast. They can coast till November 26th because that's what they're going to do if they win tonight. So I've said at the beginning of the year, I thought that's how it's going to play out, and I think that's what's going to happen tonight. So I'm going to stick with Ohio State. I'm honestly, I hate to say this because, they are probably the 2 most hated teams that I have, but I'm genuinely excited to sit down and watch this game tonight. I really am because I think it's going to show us exactly what both teams are. So if it's a great game, both teams are legit. If somebody gets blown out, then we get to talk about it next week. So I will say this: good luck to both of you tonight. I think Alex probably needs it less than Cottrell does, but we'll see what happens. So let's roll into pick 'em because we're up 13 minutes till kickoff here. So good Lord, what's happening?
Brutal over here, but we're gonna fight back. We're gonna fight back, right, Alex? We're fighting back.
Oh,
it's a long season.
Early. It's early. We don't know who teams are yet. Now that we do know,
man,
we're gonna get them all right. We're good.
So this is what we're gonna do. Cottrell, I'm assuming your picks are the same from Wednesday.
Yeah, I got to get back on track here. I've been trying to mix up my picks. I've been giving you my fourth, fifth, best picks of the week. We're staying full-fledged on from what our picks were on Wednesday, because clearly those have been the money picks. We're 6-3 over there right now. So I got to give you guys the ticket today.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. Cottrell's going to go first. I'm going to go second. We'll just give you, because we can rip through ours because we've already discussed them before. We'll get through them pretty quick here, and then we'll let Alex have the spotlight at the end to go over his, since his are new. And then we'll answer a couple fan questions that I think Alex has, and we will get you guys out of here for 12 o'clock kickoff. So, Cottrell, take it away, my man.
All right, so I'm going to keep mine short and sweet because they are the same, like Bill mentioned. So, first game, I like Texas -15 at Baylor. I don't think Baylor's that good. I think Texas is the team that can turn it on, really whenever they want to. Last week, you saw they flipped the switch against that Wyoming team, and they ultimately won that game by 21. I think they can do the same here, with the in-state, conference game. I think they take care of business at Baylor. Easily 15-point win for them. Second pick, I like Clemson. I don't know what the reasoning behind or the rationale is there, but I like Clemson to cover that 2.5 points, and I ultimately think they win. I think Florida State is the better team. I just think that Clemson is the desperate team, and I think they find a way to win this game. Third game that I have, I like the over 40.5 Iowa at Penn State. Look, I know weather is playing a factor and things like that. I still think Penn State's going to be able to put up points in that one. I think Penn State has the ability to score 30-plus on their own, and I don't think that Iowa team is going to go out without a fight. So I think over 40.5, I think I'm pretty comfortable with that one. And then Superdog this week. I think the best bet here is Colorado +21 at Oregon. I think Colorado is a team that has shown you that they can put up points. I don't expect them to win this game, but if Colorado can put up points and continuously have, Oregon throwing punches back at them, I think that means this game is close. So I like Colorado to get me some Superdog points in that category this week at +21.
All right, my first one I share with Cottrell as well. I got Texas -14.5 at Baylor. I think they got that wake up call in the fourth quarter. They went on to quickly score 21 points. They woke up, took care of business. I don't think Steve Sarkisian lets them kind of fall asleep at the wheel this week. And again, like Cottrell said, Baylor's just not that good this year. So I think going to Waco and winning by 2 touchdowns isn't that big of a deal. Give me the Longhorns here to get back on track, look sharp, take care of business. Second game. UTSA at Tennessee -20.5. I'm going to take the Vols and the points. I think they cover. I think they come out hungry after last week. They got to get back on track. No better way to do that than a non-conference opponent. Joe Milton, sharpen up everything, kind of get ready for league play. I think they cover the 20.5. I think Tennessee wins big. Last game, we already mentioned Ole Miss at Alabama. Not sure if Ole Miss definitely goes in and wins the game. I like them +7, though. I think they have a great shot to win the game outright. But I think they go in. I think Jackson Dart and company do enough to get it done. Keep the game close. I have no confidence in Alabama offensively to consistently score points. That alone will keep Ole Miss in the game, give them plenty of opportunities and possessions offensively to put up points. Give me Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. Give the old middle finger to Nick Saban after the handshake. Superdog. I got Charlotte +28 at Florida. I think Florida comes out a little sluggish. They've had the polar opposite reaction probably on campus the last couple of weeks. They went from you guys suck, you're overrated, to now you got every little English major walking through the quad, patting the guys on the back, telling them how great they are because they beat Tennessee. I think they come out with a little bit of a hangover from the big win. Charlotte can score. They've scored over 35 points in all their games. They could stop absolutely nobody, but I think Charlotte puts up enough points. 28, I think they keep it close. Maybe they steal me, 5 to 10 Superdog points. See what happens. So those are my picks for the week. Alex, let's hear them, brother.
All right, sounds good. So we got a few of the same games as you guys do. We're going to start off with UCLA. I have them at +3.5 against against Utah. I think Dante Moore is the difference there. We've already kind of dug into that game a little bit deeper. I do have Iowa also plus 14 with the weather and Iowa's defense and Penn State's defense. I have us as a very low scoring game. Cottrell did say he's going with the over. I think if you don't play the spread, playing the under with an Iowa team is always a smart decision. We got Ole Miss as plus 7. Jackson Dart being the difference there with on the ground and through the air. Alabama is not the team we've seen in the past, and I see them being eliminated from the college football playoff after this week. And my super dog, I'm going to mix it up just a little bit today, is Rutgers plus 24 against Michigan.
It's a good pick.
Most teams run the ball to set up the pass. This team is the total opposite. Rutgers passes the ball to set up the run. They're averaging over 200 yards on the ground this year. And where is it? And I have Rutgers trying to control the clock, keeping this game close. They're going to use their strengths, which is on the ground. I do see Michigan winning this game, but I have Rutgers covering. I think it's a 14-point game at the end of the day.
Could be. I told Gene not to pick it. So, I mean, like I said, we'll see. Apparently practice was a lot better this week. Harbaugh's back on the sidelines. We'll see what happens. We notoriously beat the hell out of Rutgers. I think the last 3 times we played them, our average margin of victory is like 50 points, and that is not a made-up number. It's legitimately right around there. We went to Rutgers a couple years ago and beat them 72-0. It is. We'll see though. They have not looked sharp. I hope that all gets cleaned up today. JJ needs to have a way better game than he did last week, but they should win. We'll see. All right, what questions you got for us? We got like 4 minutes, so everybody can
we'll do it really quick.
And go get a drink and sit down and watch the 12 kicks.
Yeah, so the main question, all the questions that we had this week are kind of around the same thing, so we're kind of going to bunch together into one, which is which one-loss team has the best chance of getting their way back into the college football playoff picture?
Which team that has one loss right now, or a team that we think will have one loss at the end of the year?
Let's go with right now, just because we don't want to, predict the future.
Speculate, yeah. For me, I'd say LSU. I think LSU has the clearest shot here. They lost to a non-conference team in Florida State, who's a top 5 team right now, and they still have to play Bama, and they have to play Texas A&M, and they would have to play the SEC championship game, which we all presume would be against Georgia. So I think LSU has all the tools in the world right now to put themselves right back into the college football playoff if they run the table.
LSU would be my answer as well, because I think they have enough left that if they can win all their games, the resume would be undeniable at that point. And LSU is definitely the answer to that. I guess you could argue Tennessee. I mean, I guess if Tennessee came out of the SEC with one loss, and they would be in the same boat, but LSU would absolutely be my answer.
And I'm going to go with the same exact group. I had LSU in my college football playoff at the beginning of the year, and I'm not changing that pick now. And after I saw them last week, it looks like they're firing on all cylinders, and I anticipate them running the table the rest of the way.
It's so funny, too, because after this week, I think my answer could potentially change, too. Because I think, Notre Dame loses, they still got to play USC. They still got a tough schedule in front of them. If Ohio State loses, they still got Michigan. They still got Penn State in front of them. I think, there's a clear path for a lot of these one-loss teams to right the ship. But right now, I think it's LSU, and I think it's clear.
Agreed. All right, 11:56. We actually got done on time. I was getting a little bit worried that we were going to go over today, so we pulled it out at the end. Anybody have any closing remarks?
Got nothing.
I'm going to say today that somebody new is going to jump into the Heisman race after today. I got a feeling someone's either going to cement themselves as a runner or someone's going to completely eliminate themselves, but someone's going to have a big game today or a bad enough game where we don't even talk about him anymore. Something's going to happen that we're going to be talking about next week.
I'm here for that. That'll be fun. But listen, it's a great, like I said, it's first day of fall. Everybody go enjoy the games. It's the first really huge weekend in college football. Many more to come after this. We still have rivalry week later on in October, but it's going to be a damn good day of football. So, Justin, I will absolutely take you up on that offer. I would assume Michigan will be out in Oregon Ohio State will be too. I would assume in the next couple of years. I think it would have to, the way the schedule is going to be. I would love to take a trip out there. Alton is absolutely on my bucket list. I've been in a couple of the other big ones, so would love to see a game out there. Wouldn't mind seeing my brother Alex either. So I haven't seen him in a while other than on here. So that's it, boys. We got stuff coming in the works. I can't give away too much, but working on kind of having our own website. I did start designing merch, so more on that in the next couple of weeks. We'll get that out, and if guys want to support the show and buy stuff, they can. Obviously, all of us will have it to support and wear on the show, but we got stuff in the works. We're just getting started. That's the best thing I could say. Show's been great so far. We're still building, still getting better. Love it. Thank you guys for all the support. Enjoy the day today. Go grab a drink, get on the couch, get ready to go, and we will see you guys next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.